Hey, it's Scott Beebe with Business on Purpose, and this is a question that I think it's really, really important to ask, especially at the beginning of a year. At the time of this recording, it is the beginning of 2023, and we've got to ask the question, why do we work so hard just to die? Fyodor Dostoevsky said this: if one wanted to crush and destroy a man entirely, to mete out to him the most terrible punishment, all one would have to do would be to make him do work that was completely and utterly devoid of usefulness and meaning. Peter Segars wrote the sequence to one of the great wisdom lyrics in the history of folk rock in the late 1950s that would be recorded eventually by the Byrds in 1965 and then popularized into a variety of theme music: Forest Gump, The Simpsons, The Wonder Years. Some have called Segars' Turn, Turn, Turn a number one hit with the oldest lyrics, because Peter Segars adapted the majority of the lyrics from the wisdom literature of the Jewish King Solomon's writing in the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes. Now, the Segars rendition ends just shy of Solomon's powerful sequence that really does help us to understand the motive and the value of work when asking that question, why do we have to work and then just die? It's a great book written by John Mark Comer. It's called Garden City, and it says of our modern, primarily Western culture, in his context, he says this: the American dream, which started out as the brilliant idea that everybody should have a shot at a happy life, has devolved over the years into a narcissistic desire to make as much money as possible, in as little time as possible, with as little effort as possible, so that we can get off work and go do something else. Kenny Chesney actually popularized a cultural Brazilian story about a fisherman and a businessman in his song The Life, showing the contrast between a simple, humble fisherman's idea of success, catch enough to live that day, and the scale at all cost ambition of a savvy businessman who has the roadmap to create a world-dominating fishing empire. Also, we can entice this humble fisherman to do exactly what he's already doing today, except with far more effort and far more stress. We have twisted work as something equivalent to a modern curse on our humanity, something that we can whittle down to maybe 4 hours per week so that we can get on with the true desire of our hearts: leisure. Solomon, regarded as the wisest person to ever live, said this of work: there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also, that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in their work, in their labor. Listen to how it ends. This is God's gift to man. Have we walked astray from the original design for work? Is work really a gift? Well, work is a gift. A gift is a thing willingly given without payment. And it's also something intended to be enjoyed. Imagine waking up in a position where you are simply unable to work, to move, to think, to respond, to react. We have some in our society who have not been given the capability to enjoy the gift of work. Their days are spent in a relentless cycle of managing indifference or wondering why they've been stripped of the gift of working, and only dreaming of the contribution they could make through the gift of work. Now, I'm not talking about people who have the capability, the physical or mental capability of work. I'm talking about those who don't. See, we were created to work. Of the world's major monotheistic religions, there is a collective alignment that points back to an original woman and a man standing in a primitive office, a garden, tending, trimming, sowing, harvesting, working. The Jewish have a cultural phrase, tikkun olam. It means the repair of the world. Work is an active, productive, skill-leveraging way to be in a constant state of repairing a broken world. See, work builds relationships and brings value to ourselves and to other people. The Anglican theologian John Stott says that work is the expenditure of energy in the service of others, which brings fulfillment to the worker, benefit to the community, and glory to God. New York City pastor Tim Keller describes work as rearranging the raw materials of God's creation in such a way that it helps the world in general and people in particular thrive and flourish. There's a storied tale that was shared in Middle Eastern Jewish history of a shrewd manager who had just been fired by his owner. The manager has one final task of employment, and that is to go settle up any outstanding accounts on behalf of the owner. So the shrewd manager begins slashing payments as a way to win favor with the customers and shoring up those relationships, building bridges, using discounts and favors. And so when you hear the story, you expect that the shrewd manager is going to be rebuffed, rebuked. But at the end of the story, we are instructed with these words: use your worldly resources to benefit others and to make friends. It's a wild story, and one I thought would get the rebuke of the manager. But put more subtly, author Dan Miller says this of the benefits of business and money. He said, I love having the opportunities that business provides, but I want to be a vehicle for being, for deep, meaningful relationships, and not just for doing. For many, the reason we don't feel a sense of success in our work is because our definition of success is elusive. Solomon, a man who had far more than you or I will ever had, said this of confusing money with success. He said, don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Restrain yourself. Riches disappear in the blink of an eye. Wealth sprouts wings and flies off. And as Eugene Peterson puts it, flies off into the wild blue yonder. We have a success problem because we have allowed the eyes of accumulation to define the success of our life. Metrics have become our barometer while our relationships and connections begin to starve. You know what the fisherman does every day after he fishes throughout the morning and gathers enough fish to make it through the day? The tale continues like this. He says, I play with my kids. In the afternoon, I take a nap with my wife. And the evening comes, I join my buddies in the village for a drink. We play guitar, sing, and dance throughout the night. Even the fisherman had a schedule. Annie Dillard, the American writer, saw the value of a schedule in relation to a valuable life and valuable work. She says, a schedule defends from chaos and whim. It's a net for catching days. It's a scaffolding on which a worker can stand and labor with both hands at sections of a time. A schedule is a mock-up of reason and order, willed, faked, and so brought into being. A schedule then elevates work, allowing it to exist more for relationships than for things. When things and money are prioritized over relationships, then our definition of success is upside down. We have redefined the terms of success, prioritizing the aimlessness of more, specifically more money and more things. So how should we define success in our work? Well, we can start by asking this powerful question: who have I been created to be? Each of us has been designed, created, and offered to the society around us as a creator. What have you been created to create? Think through the filters of your own skill, your own temperament, your personality. What gives you energy? What depletes you of energy? Annie Dillard, who describes herself as a religious nun, N-O-N-E, it's detailed on our website, says wisely, how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. Work is a valuable way to spend our lives when that work positions us to do what the New York Times columnist Arthur C. Brooks lays out with thoughtful simplicity. And he says it in this little poetic phrase: use things, love people, worship the divine. Use things, love people, worship the divine. But if you begin reordering the verbs, then work becomes misery. As you listen to this, or as you read this, how can you shift your mindset and your success definition to create meaning in a work worth doing? So you don't just wake up, work, and die. So will you work till you die? Or will you intentionally shift your mindset to begin working towards an end filled with usefulness and meaning that creates what Arthur C. Brooks calls the cabinet of fortitude, needed adding value to our collective society? I hope work will become meaningful, and I hope this coming year, work will be of value not only to you, but to the people around you, and that you'll flip your definition of success to where it's more centered around relationships.